Yeah.
If you're not trained to think that way, then you don't even know where to start, and you're kind of guessing and checking, and you might intuitively arrive there, but you might not be able to replicate that. And so there's an outsized advantage that we can use to go and not only create programs, but also to diagnose where other people's programs have gone wrong. It's like, I've always thought about it, it's like a thinking thing. Like software is a thinking, learning how to code, learning how to code with those constraints is a mental exercise in how to think. And that's not going away.
Right. Here we are, super secret, Founders Drive. Super secret. Right. Who's this week?
Bill Gates.
William
Gates. Billy Gates. All right, so there's two things that I want to talk about.
Two things. All right, I guess we have time for two things.
All right. Do you want the more?
Give me the less spicy take first.
Less spicy. All right,
and then we'll go into the spicy take.
All right. So first less spicy take.
Yep.
Is the importance of programming in today's day and age. A lot of people talk about how programming is done, it's over with, and as a profession, I think there's going to be way less opportunities because there's no need for people that are figuring it out. People just want the experts. The reason why this is important is because Bill Gates basically got into the whole software business and revolutionized the whole software industry because he loves programming, especially at an early age. He loved being able to create a program and test its results. And he did that with some of the earliest mainframe computers.
So before I give a response to any of this, I want you to define what you mean by a programmer versus like a coder. Or maybe they're the same.
Yeah, I think that programming is being able to set a program for a machine.
Okay.
But even more broadly, a program is basically just being able to set the program, the events that are going to be happening or the agenda that's going to be happening. So you can see a programmer in an event planner. They set a program, they set an agenda for what's going to be happening. And they coordinate all the things that need to happen for that. With technology and computers, it's the same idea, but it's just scoped down to the logical language that a machine can follow and execute.
And that's what a coder would do.
And a coder was very good at understanding how to translate requirements that people give into language that a machine could understand. And so they understand the code of the actual machine.
And so you're saying the programming is actually the important piece. So like event coordinators, wedding planners, and computer science engineers, and other I guess professions that have that ability is what is important even nowadays with AI.
It's extremely important today too. Back then it was more, especially in computer science, was more restricted to people that knew how to code.
Yes.
But now that the requirement to code isn't as necessary, it's opened up the doors for more people to take advantage of programming with machines.
They can now leverage the coding tools, the AI tools that we have to run the programs that actually impact people. It's very interesting, like the amount of people that can actually build an app now to actually add value in the world is becoming so democratized that you're starting to, I think this will start to happen this year too, the people that have the best taste are rising to the top. It's not like, okay, can I code better than you? It's all about, like, can I program better than you? Right? And there's a nuance there. And it's not about writing the code. It's about understanding the vision that you have and then how you're going to get there.
And creating the program that gets you to that vision.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's a big thing that I think is getting lost in the mix right now because we conflate terms and but I do think that there is a difference between those in understanding where a programmer fits in, where a coder fits in, and I still think it's really important to learn how to program because when you have your computer science degree.
I do.
And so you have an education,
classical training in there, whatever they call it,
of how to, like, the logical ways to approach creating programs, and
specifically with things that a machine can read.
things that a machine can read. But I think the machine was operating around a specific set of constraints, and now that those constraints are off, I don't think that the things that you learned in school and in on the job and me on the job go away. I think now it creates an outsized advantage for those skill sets.
That's interesting. I think, yeah, the nuance there is probably the applied skill set. Like the skill set itself went away in terms of having to write the code and like be the guinea pig that memorizes all these techniques and stuff like that, to like understanding, okay, this is a tool in my belt, and how do I actually use this tool to get to where I'm going. And I think you probably only get there after maybe your third or fourth year learning, okay, I've got all these tools I can use. The AI has democratized these things so that you still need to know, hey, if the AI is doing it, that this is the tool for the right job. But things are, like, I don't have to spend the time actually building the tool out or using the tool as much.
Yeah, but I do think that understanding, for instance, and having so many years of experience writing if-then statements is a really powerful tool. I mean, I spend a lot of time understanding and learning about language, and one of the things that you learn is how powerful an if-then statement is in terms of transferring beliefs and expectations to people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, in coding, when we code, that was something that's just a fundamental tool, is writing if this then that. But in the real world, it's a direct representation of cause and effect. And speaking to somebody, to cause and effect in somebody else, lets people know that you understand, or you're making a proclamation that when this happened, you can expect this to happen.
Else,
and that's a really powerful tool in communication. And I think we had to, with coding, especially in the languages that like we learned, it was something that was necessary if we wanted to communicate to a machine. Like, we had to get rid of all of the fluff and all of the contradictions, and so it was like
English,
right?
You know?
But it's a more refined, logical version of English. I always thought to myself, even before AI, is that our skill set is we're able to communicate with our logic brain really, really, like, that was our skill. It's like we're software engineers are engineering logic and building systems through the logic, and we understand how logic operates in a very systematized way. And that's a really powerful skill set when we were building earlier versions of, software, because you couldn't program in contradictions. Now, with AI software being more probabilistic and less deterministic, less logical, it will accept irrational constraints or things that contradict programs that contradicted themselves, and they won't error out. They'll give you a response back.
Interesting.
And you'll get things that don't really make sense because it's opened up the door. But if you understand how to communicate in a way that is logically sound, you'll get logically sound results back, and there's still a degree of predictability there. And I think that constraint isn't going away, or that aspect of the world isn't going away. There's this thing called the Hermetic principles. And these are some of the principles of humanity existence that go back all the way from the beginning of time, at least so they say. And it's basically built off this idea that the world is mental, the world is a function of the mind. And one of those principles is cause and effect. And that's something that I think highlights just the nature of this idea of being able to understand how things happen in a cause and effect type of way, and being able to communicate that is really powerful. And I think that's just one of those tools that we found in early machines, just like we found in early humans, because it's the basis of how the universe works and how we process things and how our perception works. So that's just one aspect of it, but there's also things like loops, for loops, and understanding how those things happen and being able to think like that. There's more broad algorithms that we've learned, which can be classified in different types. Breadth, specifically search algorithms. Breadth first search versus depth first search. If you're not trained to think that way, then you don't even know where to start, and you're kind of guessing and checking, and you might intuitively arrive there, but you might not be able to replicate that. And so there's an outsized advantage that we can use to go and not only create programs, but also to diagnose where other people's programs have gone wrong. It's like, I've always thought about it, it's like a thinking thing. Like software is a thinking, learning how to code, learning how to code with those constraints is a mental exercise in how to think. And that's not going away. I think it's actually more important now that we have machines thinking for us.
It's especially when you're not talking about a system where I still do believe there are some constraints, especially like you have a physical machine, you're running it, on a physical server. Even in the computer world, right? There's like a specific physical constraints where like, okay, I know I'm running code. Code can only do this. But it's also interesting to think about the people that are getting answers for like their daily life from AI who can't formulate even their questions logically. Yeah. So they might get illogical responses back. Yeah. And then be operating on that kind of thing as truth. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting because not only is it like important to have a good solid foundation in terms of like a layer deeper than most people, mm-hmm. but also like that experience to know when you can like sniff out some BS. Yeah. And if you haven't done it for any amount of time, you might go down the path. And I did this, specifically in my first couple of years in undergrad, where you'd be going down a solution, you'd be like, oh, this is working great. And I wouldn't even think about some edge cases that would pop up. And then you start getting that experience. And then, 10, 15 years later, when I'm building something now, it's like, oh, this is just second nature to me. Yeah. It's because of that experience and that stuff that you get just over time in doing these things.
It becomes a part of you.
Yeah. I think there's a very interesting parallel here just in terms of how Bill Gates is able to do that in terms of like his knowledge expansion.
Yeah, well, it brings me to another point, which is not the spicy point.
Ah, yes, but another one.
Which is leverage the fuck out of your programming abilities if you can. And that's something that I've arrived at a little bit more recently. We've talked about it a little bit more, is realizing that, we actually have that advantage, and most people are using AI, and they'll talk like they understand computers. I built this app in 3 weeks. It's like, okay, you built the Happy Path, and we're not even sure if your Happy Path worked.
Right.
But in Happy Path, for those that are aware, it's just the case where everything works according to plan. But we know in the real world, not everything happens according to plan. And then even if it does, 2 weeks later, when one of your dependencies change, now it affects you.
Right.
What are you going to do about it? And so somebody who goes out there and says that doesn't understand the nature of building things in the real world and all the things that you have to account for. And because we have that experience, because we have the skill set, and not only that, we all know that if you really gain your chops in software by debugging and learning what went wrong and then figuring out how to not let that happen again.
Yeah, I think so. The programming, like the strength in programming, I think is good. I also think it can be even more abstract, where it's like once you start, or once you've done it in one discipline, let's say programming, where you've learned to communicate logically and you've learned to communicate in a way that you can get, what's in your head as a response from some of these systems, you leverage that into all paths of life. You start leveraging that way of thinking and analysis when you are cooking, when you are, anything, right? Yeah. When you're working out.
When you're cooking, when you're following a recipe, that's an algorithm.
There's things
when you're working
here,
out, your workout program is an algorithm. If I do this, then I can get this result out. And if
when
I don't
I'm fundraising, when I'm building a product, when I'm talking to users, there's so many things.
Building a business. We talked about how, we're starting to look at it like an engineering program or a problem almost. But I also think that this is something that Elon does very well too.
Breaking things into his own
program that he's building, and he's like, okay, I can understand this more. And I think now that he's, like you're talking about, taking it into different spaces, he's built all these businesses because he understands what a business is at its core, what the program is, what's necessary, what the algorithm is, which we've talked about in earlier episodes, and he's just replicating it over and over. And I think in his mind, he's probably like, you guys are all idiots because it's right here.
Yeah.
But I think that also comes from, being rooted in programming, and then being researched, understanding what other people have done, and then
and also being exposed to it by listening to stuff like this.
Yeah,
because 100%. Maybe you are thinking about this in your room alone, maybe you are having these deep conversations with yourself, and being prompted with the right questions.
Yeah.
Most likely you're not. And so, welcome to a room where hopefully we can pose some of these questions where you pause and think about what your answer might be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's where the value is.
Yeah, and it also shows you how you can leverage artificial intelligence in different and unique ways to really, get your brain right. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to leverage any of these technologies to the degree that you can if you don't have a sharp mind. And we live in a world right now where, there's going to be one person that it's going to be easier for somebody to create $1 billion company. But what's $1 billion when the top companies are making $100 trillion companies? And that's a real world. It's about the share, even though you can grow the share, but it's about the share in the relative indication, the relative measure. Wealth is a relative measure. I mean, people are just relational in that aspect. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So spicy take.
Something that has been really curious to me with Bill Gates is how he talks about he talks about how he was really dialed in when he was younger.
Yes.
And he said, I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about the girls. I didn't care about anything but business. It was only Microsoft.
No holidays, no weekends, no vacations. Yes.
Any of that. He said, no girlfriends, and then like the family life. He was like, all of that was subservient to his main goal.
To the point where like his kids in their school wouldn't use his last name. They would use their mother's last name so that they could have a more normal childhood.
And so my whole point is that there's things that you don't operate in a vacuum. Success doesn't operate in a vacuum, and the decisions you make have consequences. And that's one thing right there where we're talking about it, where Bill Gates was, his kids didn't take his last name.
But in the primary school, at least.
But for all of the time that he spent there and not developing his skills with how to communicate with his wife or his kids or girls, it set him up in a situation where he ended up with fucking Jeffrey Epstein on a plane.
Yeah.
And because he didn't know how to go and talk to a girl or develop a relationship with his wife, he ended up, Lord, prevent this, but like,
we don't really
hopefully
know.
This isn't the case, but like, hopefully this isn't the case. But he is being accused of some foul shit where he was trafficking, allegedly trafficking different types of, young women and all this stuff. And I think that's a direct reflection of you had no skills in that. You completely tried to dominate in this other arena without developing your skills in this really, really primal area of what it means to be a human. You can't just negate your urges. And so you were underdeveloped here, and now it's causing your whole fucking legacy to be called into question.
So okay, that's so the take there is that the urges aren't given a proper outlet, and so they come out in a way that's very immoral and unethical.
Well, that's the, like, I guess one of the consequences of the take. But the mirror take is that don't just ignore other areas of your life and development. Like, success in one area shouldn't just come at the neglect of other important areas, to the point where you again
compromise your morals.
You compromise your morals. Your wife leaves you because she's like, she's reading about this stuff and she was like, yeah, you used to hang out with him and I thought it was weird, but like, and then people were like, no, you treated me like an asshole, and yeah, you're on the cover of a couple magazines. But now, and then people are also talking about how weird you are. And again, this does not diminish what he did in the software space, but the way he did it, I think the way that he did it didn't have to be done that way. And I didn't say that on the earlier version of it, but I think the stuff that he's happening right now is a direct reflection of the way that he conducted himself in the
last 50 years or so.
And like, people let him get away with bullying people, and he kind of got what he wanted. What you talked about with him getting the car imported illegally. That's a reflection of just thinking that, you're above the law. And sometimes there's ways where you can, like, we talk about bending rules where it doesn't really make sense, but like overtly like breaking the rules and then having that idea where I'll treat people how I want to treat them. I'll call them fucking idiots all the time.
Yeah.
And I will do so with impunity. it's like we're seeing that shit unravel and come out right now. And again, hopefully it is wrong, because I'd rather, you know, that be the case where it is like he was actually just caught up in something and it wasn't, you know, if he was just caught up in something and it wasn't something that he intentionally did. But to me, it doesn't really seem like that.
Yeah, there does seem to be a deeper story there. I guess the one aspect of like being even self-aware of aspects of your personality and of your psyche that are just undeveloped, I think is important. I don't I struggle to think that there's anything in my control or in my life where I would compromise my morals for. I don't think, especially if I had a higher IQ, you know, like Bill Gates is obviously a little bit smarter than I am, to have it swing, that pendulum swing so far to the point where you can't control, let's say, their urges, right? To where it breaks your moral character, your ethical character. Like, that seems to be like a different playground.
Well, to me, I think we set our morals. And
sure, 100%.
He believed, I think, that because he was smarter than other people, that he was better, and that he was able to like, it allowed him to get away with what other people might have thought was wrong. And he believed that he could get away with things that, he believed that he could just get away with things. At least that's the way it's looking like it's coming out right now. Again, not everything is out here, but it doesn't really look good when, you know, your wife leaves you for some pretty serious allegations.
Right.
And of course he's denying it, so we'll put that out there on the record. But I think even at the heart of it is like, that could have been different if he actually prioritized it. If he said, hey, I do want to make sure that I am, like, my success doesn't come at the cost of me
socially.
Socially.
I think
we're social beings at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, 100% we are. I think I don't want to diminish any of the things that could have happened, but the flip side of that is also, we talked about this a little bit before, is how much more success could they have had?
Yeah.
Given a more well-rounded individual. You know, it's very interesting. I have that same idea even today with Elon.
Yeah.
He's not even the most well-rounded, and I don't know if you really need a well-rounded individual for some of the things he's trying to do. But that question is also going to be poised is in terms of like, could they be even more successful if he was more well-rounded and or different?
Yeah.
You know,
I also think there's a lot of situations where Elon, like with the whole Amber Heard thing, like that derailed him and took him in one way and the other and everything like that. I think that there's another world where, you know, that's not as big of a distraction for him if he knows how to, you know.
Right. It's interesting because you contrast that with maybe they wouldn't have had any success if they weren't these kind of the people that they are today, you know?
That's very true. So it's one of those things, like, you know, we'll never really know. It's just looking at their stories.
Exactly. But I also believe that you can be a success without having to be that kind of person.
Yeah.
And so
I 100% agree.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I like that. I like those takes.
Yeah. So those are the takes on Bill Gates. Do you have anything?
For Bill Gates, I really enjoyed keying in on that illegal import of the car. The Porsche 959 is an amazing car, but also the story around like how you get that into the U.S. is not like some simple, you know, I walked it across the border. You know,
what made it illegal to import in the?
So there's a lot of cars in other countries that are built that just don't pass the same emission standards that we have here, and so they're banned from importing them. Right now, though, most of the Japanese cars, there's a 25-year ban on any car coming from overseas. So now you're starting to see cars from 2000 come over, which is really cool because now we're starting to see like the first like Fast and Furious type style cars that are allowed in the U.S. now. The right-hand drive cars, which I'm going to be getting soon.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
shit.
we'll be on we'll be on a Founder's Drive with a right-hand car. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm really excited to get that. But also just that's also my passion.
Yeah.
But also programming and technology. I think Microsoft today is a great company and offers a lot of solutions that we even use as a company, and I would highly recommend you guys
100%.
use.
Yeah.
The one cool thing that I have from Microsoft is the fact that after all of these years,
Mhm.
the start menu on a Windows computer is still a React component. And it takes a significant amount of memory every single time you open up the start menu. If anyone's out there using a Windows PC, open up your task manager on the bottom, and then open and close the start menu, and you'll see a giant spike in memory usage.
Oh my god.
That has never been fixed. It's a giant React component that they just have never optimized. And so it's one of those cool things that you learn.
Like, how is it just it's such a big company and so dominant though that
Yes, and we're going to see them also come out with some really cool AI features with their models and their vertical integration with OpenAI, because they now have that partnership, and all of the kind of like wearables, because they're going to coming after the Meta market for the Meta Ray-Bans and stuff like that very soon. And then we never even touched on some of the gaming stuff that Xbox and stuff that Microsoft has that has been trying to compete with PlayStation forever now.
Yeah, just Microsoft as a company is so entrenched in the business technology space.
Yeah.
And like their whole like just infrastructure with how to move into the enterprise space is what has allowed them to grow so much.
And stay on top.
Yeah, I remember back when I first started getting into technology, it was like 2011-ish, and my mentor at the time had a really deep relationship with a lot of Microsoft contacts, and they were really pushing early versions of the cloud. They were trying to do anything to get people, using the cloud. And I remember back then they were like, it's not a matter of if people move to the cloud, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And it's also really interesting because it kind of shows the whole behind the scenes with Microsoft, where the business infrastructure, which was really laid by Bill Gates, is a huge part of what continues to allow it to grow.
Yeah. It's gonna be very interesting because also Gates is still alive doing his philanthropic thing, but Microsoft has its own trajectory at the moment.
Yeah, it's kind of he's still worth over $100 billion.
Yes,
but he would be worth so much more if he wasn't giving it out his wealth regularly.
Yeah, that is something that I feel like he does a really good job of. And it's crazy that people still criticize him.
Yeah. Well, is it a guilty conscience that's making him do that? Or?
It might be. It might be. But regardless of how those funds get to the people that need them,
it is a good thing that the money is going to areas that need it. And I know that there's a lot of chatter around people that get conspiratorial around him, who are like, he, is testing on people in Africa and doing this. I honestly, if I'm being really, really, open, I just haven't really looked into that stuff that much. So I don't really know what the story is behind there. So maybe there is some validity. But yeah, that's some echoes that I hear from there. But I do think on the front of it, if I'm just taking at what I know at face value, it seems like, investing in a lot of these solutions to cure malaria and bring water to different areas and
reduce the carbon emissions.
Yeah, that stuff seems to make sense. Another thing that we actually didn't talk about was the beef between Elon and Bill Gates.
Yeah, there's when you're in the sandbox of the world's richest people, there's going to be some punches thrown. Yeah. But I think the biggest one that I think is even worth considering is the fact that Elon doesn't consider Bill to be a very smart sciences person.
He said he's not very strong in the
which
sciences.
Is like a direct contradiction to the whole learning and the expansion of knowledge and his thirst for
I wonder why he says that. I wonder why he says that. Is it because
it's the whole global warming stuff? So Bill just recently in the last year put out another memo that was basically just outlining his thoughts on where the world's at and how he's going to change his philanthropic actions going forward. And one of the changes that he had was he's going to stop funding climate change research and climate change actions and stuff in the world. And the reason essentially came out to the fact that it doesn't really matter anymore. That even on our current trajectory, the Earth isn't going to warm enough to really be a problem.
Mm. So
And
yes, the climate does change.
exactly. It changes up and down all the time, and it's something that we have some impact on, but it's not a catastrophic event like we've been told for the last, whatever, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like going back on that a little bit. After investing hundreds of billions of dollars in that, I think was partly what Elon was trying to call out,
I see.
along with some of his other ideas for how a society can run if, given the money to actually do the things like carbon emissions, the malaria.
Yeah.
And then they also had this like self-recycling toilet, which was interesting, where, he'd be like, we can fit a village. All you have to do is use the bathroom. It's like, all right, maybe I don't want to do that, but
I don't want to drink his shit water. Okay. I think that there was also some beef there too, because Bill Gates took a short position out on Tesla, which is basically a bet that it's gonna stock price is gonna go down, and Elon didn't like that at all, because he was like, you are saying that you're for the environment, and our mission is to support the environment.
Yeah.
And so after that, I think the relationship was pretty sour, and he didn't like that at all.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think it's not just the fact that somebody put in. It's like, you have a voice, and that voice is now being used against my mission.
Mm.
And because he still holds a lot of influence.
Yeah,
Bill Gates holds a lot of influence.
he does. And yeah, it's not something to look the other way at. But I also think that
people like the World Health Organization and stuff like that.
But I think that the one thing with someone like Elon is he's a very loud voice that isn't afraid to hit back at Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And I think for much of Bill Gates' life, up until his mid 40s, 50s probably, he never had anybody tell him no. I mean, his mom called him a precocious brat. Like, that was his nickname for her. And they, used to butt heads a lot, and he just wasn't really told no. And then you go to the therapist, and the therapist is like, no, you should just listen to your son more. And then you're like, okay, well now,
I can't win this battle.
Right. And so he just really wasn't ever told no. And I think there is some, first of all, I don't think people like that.
Yeah.
Right. And then you couple that with an enormous amount of wealth, and it doesn't really sit well with people. So when you have somebody come up and be like, kind of poke fun at him, a la,
they get a lot of attention, and people go to their side very quickly. Elon had a lot of people liking those comments.
Yeah. So this was a good drive, man.
Yeah, I like this. This is Bill Gates is a much more, I would say, typical founder on some of these drives. And so, if anything does come out with any of these allegations, we'll definitely be sure to film some more content and let you guys know our thoughts on how to run a business and be a good startup founder.
Well, the person is the part of the business, right?
Exactly.
We're looking at these founders, and so it is. I do think that it's not the only part of his story, but it is definitely a part of his story, and it's worth examining because, it fits into the whole picture, and we're looking at how we can, achieve the success without the hang-ups, learn from the mistakes of others. And I can tell you that there's a lot of success, but there are a lot of mistakes there too, and some of those can be
100%. I love it. Cool. All right, check us out next week for another founder.
Peace.